Happy to be joined today on the Big Ben Show by Marjorie Dannenfelser. She is the president of the Susan B. Anthony List, a national pro-life group. You can follow her on X at Marjorie SBA. Marjorie, I want to talk to you about a number of different things, but first off, I think we need to talk about the current situation as it relates to abortion drugs and the treatment of them by this administration. It's been an item of much frustration that I've heard about from a lot of different pro-lifers. What's your take on where things stand right now?
Well, the abortion rate is up since the day the Dobbs decision came down and overturned Roe v. Wade. It was around 800,000 annually then. Now it's at least 1.1 million, and that's not counting the illegal drugs coming in from other countries. And the number one reason why the abortion drug is up post-Dobbs is because of the abortion drug, the lack of regulation. And for the most pro-life president ever, in his own words, to have not restored the in-person dispensing requirement on this dangerous drug, lethal for kids and also dangerous for women, is a point of great frustration, to say it mildly.
So for our listeners, if you can take us back,
Sure.
the justification that was used for basically lowering all kinds of barriers to getting this drug when it came to just the steps that you had to take, normal steps, which makes sense from a medical situation. You know, you want to know how old the baby actually is.
Right.
You know, you want to know if there's going to be complications if you take this drug, all those sorts of things that people who claim to care about women's health, would normally be in favor of. All of that got wiped away. Why did that happen, and why has this administration not sort of reversed what happened?
So in Trump 1, there were those reasonable regulations surrounding the dispensing of the drug. And really, anybody who's ever been pregnant, which is a ton of people, knows that you need to have a sonogram to see the gestation of the baby. Is it going to be dangerous to abort that baby, that child at that point? Do you have an ectopic pregnancy? Do you have RH factor, which is lethal in a second pregnancy if you have it in the first? All these things that are very positive, just regular old healthcare for women stuff, can happen if you get it anonymously in the mail, or maybe if your boyfriend puts it in your drink. You're certainly not. So without a requirement of an in-person dispensing, you're in trouble. And why was that all wiped away under Biden? Because of COVID. So we're still living in a COVID hangover where the drugs all those regulations were taken off the books because women had to have them during COVID. They could not go see a doctor. To heck with women's health. Just give them the drugs, because frankly, it's an ideological decision, because they're more attached to the institution of abortion than they are serving women themselves, and certainly not in no interest in between a woman and a doctor. That was wiped away. So now, where are those sane regulations that were under Trump 1? They're not there for a variety of reasons, and that not many people are happy about this. In the Congress, the majority in the there's the Republican majority and the House and the Senate and the leadership all agree it's very and highly, eminently reasonable to restore this, and it's not happening.
Well, one thing that I would like some clarification on is if this was something that made so much sense beforehand, why is it that the current administration, with a whole slew of people who are willing to buck trends when it comes to the way that corporations, the way that pharmaceutical industry, the way that just about everybody wants to do things, why are they going along with something that was a Biden era policy done under the excuse of COVID, if there are so many people who are supporters of the president who disagree with them on this?
Yeah, we're not going to reverse the one COVID regulation that really totally makes sense. So to all of them, many of them made sense to reverse. Why not this one? I think it's pretty obvious, because midterms are around the corner, and because there's a great fear in Trump too of this issue in general, saying the A word is almost impossible. So dealing with issues and related to abortion drugs next to impossible. His concern is, of course, that it'll affect the Republicans
but don't
majority.
you get it coming both ways? Meaning, the way that the media tends to talk about the stories related to this, I feel like they depict it as being either you don't have access, so this sad case of this woman who has medical complications, or you do have access and you don't have these barriers, so there are medical complications, meaning you're getting hit both ways. So why wouldn't you want to restore the regulations that were in place before just because it's not going to make a difference in the way that they cover the issue.
Well, you're talking uncommon sense when it comes to how this decision is being made. Of course, you're absolutely right. There is, and honestly, how about just go to the default position with what is best for women, what is best for unborn children? I mean, fewer abortions. Frankly, if you respect the sovereignty of states who have said they want fewer or no abortions, then that is one reason. If your position, as Trump's is in his second term, which is it's only the states here, we don't have anything to do with this, we're getting this political and moral problem off my desk, let's leave it to the states, and then the abortion drug is being sent from Gavin Newsom and the mayor of New York to governor of New York into pro-life states, completely undermining their state laws. They have no sovereignty. Abortion rates in many of those states are up, not down. Clearly, there's a multiple level problem here.
So,
it is state sovereignty, it's political, but ultimately it's that default of how about just do what's good for women?
So I want to ask about the data that we're working with right now. Obviously, in the wake of Dobbs, everything gets upset in terms of the established data beforehand, which also had serious gaps and problems with it. When it comes to assessing the number of abortions that are happening in America, how accurate do you think our numbers actually are?
It's never been accurate because California, just that one state, is not required to report. California, the equivalent of a country, and also the basic view of the prevailing view in California about the abortion concern. So there is no required federal reporting. But there is some state reporting.
Shouldn't this be something that we deserve to know?
Of course, we should know. We should know. We know so much in detail about allergies. About everything that you could possibly imagine about mold.
I can pull up all stats on all these different things.
Tell me about mold. Tell me about the problem with mold in every house in the world, and the required reporting about all these. And you're not supposed to know about the first of all, yes, the abortions themselves. How about the events that are happening to the women themselves during these abortions very often? The only thing under the abortion drug that is required to be reported is death. And nothing else matters. Doesn't matter all these cases all over the country where women are going to the ER.
So we don't have any. So we don't have any tracking data on that's reliable when
Not
it comes
at
to
all.
being. I mean, that's infuriating to me because this is a drug that you are taking. And regardless of your opinion on abortion, if the woman involved is taking this drug and the likelihood of her having to go to the ER, having to be hospitalized, having blood clots, having complications from this, women deserve to know that, regardless of what your opinion is on the issue of life. I mean, and obviously I'm, my position on this, which is that I don't think these drugs should be allowed anyway. I think I would ban all of them. But the point is that women who are taking these deserve to know if they're likely to end up in the hospital.
Well, ask the women who aren't taking them themselves, who are being either coerced by a pimp, by a trafficker, by an estranged husband who doesn't want the baby. The real cases that are happening, actual in the criminal justice system now. I mean, one of her most horrific cases in Illinois is a medical resident whose mistress was sleeping. He stuffed the pills down her throat. It was a wanted baby from her perspective, but of course the baby died, and she's in the ER. Nobody cares. I mean, that happens for Theraflu, and Theraflu is off the market. One person suffers a little bit, and it's off, and then we study.
No, you have one problem with Excedrin, and it goes off the shelves for everybody. So here's the question that I have about this. This president owed his first election to the pro-life cause. I believe that 100%. I think that the election was going to be lost for him if not for the fact that Antonin Scalia and Mitch McConnell and that confluence of events led pro-lifers to trust someone who they otherwise would not have trusted. Why is this president in his second term not giving back to you and a lot of the people who have advocated so vociferously for what he's been doing when it comes to the cause of life? Why is he not listening to you in this moment?
Fear and calculation. Fear the issue unnecessarily, in my opinion. And also, this is not the deal that he made originally. The things have changed. Things on the ground have changed. Don't you see? I've heard a million times, Marjorie, this issue is going to kill us. And therefore, facts on the ground have changed. There's no new deal. Now, look at it. The first administration as you recited that perfectly, that is exactly the environment we were in. The deal was made. He abided by it. He led on it to the letter, and it led to all the opening up that we've seen. Trump, too, there is no deal, and therefore there is no expectation on his part. We, of course, operate in the political and moral world like you believe something so fundamental, therefore you act that way. Well, there are many people in his administration who do believe this. This, however, is no deal, and therefore that's why we're experiencing
this. This is a podcast and therefore not subject to the same rules as Fox News. But in the words of the Big Lebowski, new shit has come to light. Okay? No, this is the thing. I think that this is a situation that the president is running into at his own peril. And the reason I believe that is because I think people are underestimating the degree to which his coalition depends on this unique rifle shot approach that he's had to all these various issues. Okay. And he's been very smart about it. He's picked off, okay, you like weed, you like crypto, you like me. Okay. With the pro-lifers, you have to have them motivated. If you have any hope of holding on to the Senate and the House in these midterms, you have to have them out working, because they work their asses off when it comes to you, because that, they have the moral imperative involved. I think that this White House is really missing out on this. Is the problem that there's someone who has his ear, or someone who doesn't have his ear, who should, on this issue? Because it just seems like a gap to me. I don't understand it. It's one of the things that I understand the least about the way that this White House is performed.
If only I knew, because I'm not
People
really
say
around
you
there.
have his ear.
Well, I used to. I don't anymore. And as I think as I've been told by some of those consultants on air, you're not the head of the Republican Party. We make these decisions, and I think that we're a cheap date. That's also been said by, we're considered a cheap date. Now, there are certain inflection points in the growth of the pro-life movement where it became very clear we were not a cheap date.
No.
And moving into these midterms, we're spending $80 million on good people in the House and the Senate who deserve to be supported and helped, because we don't want to lose the majority for the right reasons. But it is not going to be spent on people who are not doing a great job. And I think, look, when you lose or win by a handful of votes in these battlegrounds, and you have undermotivated people, and Trump is not at the top of the ticket this time, you have a dearth of votes in a historic place where you're already on the downside of winning these midterms. So we're, I think it's in some ways we had an argument recently about whether we should be strong on the Hyde Amendment, taxpayer funding of abortion or not. And what happened was House and Senate Republican members who really care said, hell no, we're not going there. We will not be flexible on Hyde. And it was a really important moment to show the strength of the pro-life movement. Yes, it's the Hyde Amendment, which should be a given. But, maybe everything is being thrown out at the top, where it's really not, it's being fought for in other places, not in the administration.
Talk to me about Marty McCary, and particularly about the way that some of the Capitol Hill Republicans have really turned against him in recent weeks and months. I think particularly of Senator Hawley, who has complaints that he's voiced publicly, but there's also probably things that from behind the scenes. What is the situation with McCary, and do you think that there is enough of a pressure point now that the White House may have to make a decision about him?
Well, I think in the beginning, everybody proceeded with diplomacy, as one does, and then getting no clear answers. And I say not to me, but to the House and Senate leadership, to the Help Committee, to the senators and congressmen who are the leadership, who are in majority numbers saying, McCary, what are you going to do about this? And then getting nothing but honestly, in their words, disrespect at their questions on this issue. We called for the firing of McCary with Dr. McCary, when Bloomberg reported that there was communication coming from his office that this was about slowing it down, slow walking it until after midterms. Because while he should have been fired before, then it's politicized, and there are other issues surrounding him. He should not be in the position he's in, and it should question everyone, and it should be a question in everyone's mind whether the Secretary of HHS should be where he is, because it's the same dead end that this is what Josh Hawley said yesterday. This is just a dead end. They met with him yesterday, and it was the same old hand in the face, disrespect, and in this meeting yesterday, apparently Dr. McCary said it could be years. It could be years before this study is over. Just take it. I would love it if they just took it off the market, right?
Yeah.
But just reestablish the common sense rules that were already in Trump 1, that were taken away during COVID. Just restore them and then study it. Doesn't that make sense?
When it comes to the behavior of governors across the country in reaction to Dobbs, we've seen, you mentioned the extreme positions that have been taken in California, New York, Illinois, et cetera. I want to talk about Virginia for a second as members of the citizenry of the Commonwealth. What do you think of this new incoming governor's regime that seems designed to essentially match New York, California, Illinois in terms of its allowance for abortion at the latest possible stages? And do you think that this is going to become a test case for the degree to which the pro-choice backlash, the pro-abortion backlash to the Dobbs decision is capable of achieving some foothold even in places that are considered, at least nationally, even though I don't agree with it, purple in terms of their politics?
Yeah, I think so. I think Governor Northam, who was perceived as a moderate, was already in the position of any abortion at any point, even after birth. And what do we do once this baby's born alive? Many people remember that discussion. Yeah. Well, this governor is hard to get worse than that. But this governor made it very clear from the very beginning that there would be a constitutional amendment that would make sure that there were absolutely no consideration for the other person involved in an abortion, the child. There be no. So I have no doubt that I don't speak to the other issues that she's involved in, but it does seem like we're going to create a little microcosm of what progressivism might be for the country here in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
What can you do to fight back against that?
It's rough. I mean, I'm not going to pretend. In Virginia, they've got everything. That's why we fought, and failed to try to retain to try to at least get a bastion in one of those houses. The way we fight then is really taking the issues as much as we can with the resources that we have to the public. There are not a lot of high-profile Republican elected officials in Virginia that can capture the stage now because there just aren't there. Governor Youngkin is not the governor anymore, and I don't know how much he can do. There's just not that many of them.
This seems to me to be a problem across the board, which is that you have relied as a movement on a Republican Party that has had very hit or miss attitudes towards your issue. It's become a monopartisan issue, which is always dangerous.
Yes, I agree.
And I think that one of the things, it seems like ancient history when we were going back and forth, with Stupak over the, over Obamacare. Anyway,
there's something charming about all those Democrats. At least they cared a little.
A little bit. At least they felt a little twinge of guilt when they went in and went to mass. The thing that I think is difficult for you in this moment, I don't see leadership on your issue from national Republicans the degree to which it ought to exist. There are a handful of them. They still do say things. They tend to be from very safe seats, states, districts. How does that change? What can happen to make that change? Because it seems to me at this point that the left, the pro-abortion left, emphatically 100% pro-abortion left, abortion at all times, government funded, no restrictions whatsoever, they are on the attack, and you are just playing defense, and you don't have a lot of people standing up there on the top of the barricades.
I think you got it right. I think that while there is everything that we see, not just in battlegrounds but across the country, is that is not the view. The extreme view of the Democrats is not the view. But unless you've got some national representation, unless you've got somebody at the bully pulpit communicating the very common sense, the Republican Party's view. And I say I'm only Republican, because I don't know where else to go. Yeah. But the Republican position is whenever it's put in the political calculus or whenever it's debated, it's always, a 50, 60, 70% issue. We're not putting forward in general, our people are not, while they're talking about the fundamentals of it, they're not talking about banning all abortions in the country. And also, they're not talking generally about the 50 and 60% issues right now, as you say. So what do we need? We need, in 2028, a presidential nominee on the Republican side who not only knows the right place to land politically, but actually believes this. And so when the hard weather comes, it's not you figure out how to adjust, how to fix the problem, not whether to stick with the issue or not.
What does J.D. Vance think about this issue?
I believe he really believes it, and I believe that he has put himself in a very difficult place. I think that everyone's afraid of Donald Trump.
I think that you have a very, very difficult task in front of you. However, I also think that there is a generation of people who are coming up now, particularly in an era when we see declining birth rates and when we see the vast, I think, desire among people to have kids at a greater rate, to feel, quite frankly, sad about the way that they perhaps approached life, that they bought into a bunch of different things about the way that their life might go that didn't turn out to be true. I think that we are actually having a cultural shift that is ultimately going to benefit you, but I think you might have to go through a hard period before you get to that.
No one wants a hard period. We're willing to go through a hard period. My view has always been you do the thing right now that you can do to get the best result you possibly can. And you plan for the best, and then you adapt to perhaps not exactly ask Wilberforce, ask all the heads of human rights movements through time that we've known around the world. And that usually you just do what you know to be the right thing. You try to find leaders who will communicate the fundamentals of the value of each baby. So each one so incredibly important. And then to divide the rights of women and child, to make them separate, has been totally damaging to the women and the culture and children, obviously. So I believe that you're right. I think that young people, I see it in the polls. They are moving our way. They reject the absolutism of the Democratic Party. A 19% drop in the regular Gallup poll about where 18 to 27-year-olds are on that. That percentage that says all abortion is dropped. 19%. That never happens. And it's because now the post-Dobbs argument about abortion is real. It's not just terror and maybe this is going to happen. We're actually living it as a nation, grappling with it. And what we need is courage, and I believe there is that. That's a conversation for another day among future presidential candidates.
Marjorie Dannenfelser is on X at Marjorie SBA. She's president of the Susan B. Anthony list. Marjorie, thank you so much for joining the Big Ben Show today.
Thank you. It's always fun with you.